Have you noticed? No one's calling you, no texts, no voices, no one who truly wonders how you're doing. At some point, you stopped reaching out too. You don't open up to anyone anymore. You don't even ask, "How are you?" Because you've learned no one really answers, and that silence, it's getting heavier by the day. But here's the strange part. You're not scared of being alone. You're scared because you're getting used to being alone. Loneliness doesn't threaten to abandon you. It holds up a mirror. It shows you who you really are, and that's why you run. To a screen, to a woman, to some noise. Anything to drown out the emptiness inside. But for the Stoic man, that emptiness isn't the enemy. That emptiness is the door to your true self. And not everyone has the strength to open it. So, is being alone really that dangerous? Or have we just been looking at it the wrong way? Let's stop fighting loneliness and start trying to understand it. What's the first thing you do when you're alone? Pick up your phone, check your notifications, see if someone messaged you. Deep down, you already know no one did. But you check anyway, because loneliness triggers you, and you try to fight it. But a Stoic man doesn't fight loneliness, because when you fight something, you give it power over you. Instead, he does this. He looks loneliness in the eye and defines it. Loneliness, a word everyone runs from. But how many ever stop to ask what it truly means? Loneliness is the voice that rises when the world goes quiet. The voice inside you, the one that questions you, criticizes you, makes you uncomfortable. That's what people are really running from. But Stoic philosophy says the outside world may leave you, but as long as you don't abandon yourself, you are never truly lacking. That's why being alone isn't a weakness, it's a gift. Real thoughts come in solitude. Real confrontation happens when you're alone. And your true character only shows up in silence. To run from loneliness is to run from self-knowledge. Whatever you lost in the noise of the crowd, loneliness will help you remember it. That's why the Stoic man doesn't look for distractions when he's alone. He sits, he thinks, he observes. You lose nothing when people leave you, but if you run from your own soul, you lose everything. Now ask yourself, is this loneliness destroying you? Or is it finally revealing who you are? Let's go find the answer in your inner transformation. One day, everyone goes quiet. Your friends stop calling as much. Your family grows distant. Women drift away. The crowds no longer make space for you. At first, you think you're being pushed out. But then you realize, this is an invitation. When the outside world goes silent, your inner world starts to speak. But sadly, most men will do anything not to hear that voice. They put on headphones, they binge videos, they bury themselves in work, they chase a new fling, or scroll for hours, because they don't want to face what's inside. But the Stoic man, he's different. He doesn't resist the silence, he embraces it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning, when a man turns inward, he finds peace. Because true goodness isn't found out there, it's within. Turning inward is hard, because inside there are buried desires, fears, humiliating memories, unfinished dreams, and guilt that was never faced. And that's exactly why it takes courage to look within. And that courage has a name: Stoic discipline. When a Stoic man finds himself alone, the first thing he does is scan his inner world. He confronts himself. Why was I angry today? Why did I send that message yesterday? Why didn't I say some things? Why did I say others I shouldn't have? He's honest with himself. Because he knows if a man can't be honest with himself, he'll never be honest with anyone else. No matter how solid your identity looks from the outside, if you betray the man inside, you begin to rot. That's why turning inward is cleansing. It's journaling. It's thinking while you walk. It's looking in the mirror without shame. And sometimes, it's just sitting in silence, doing absolutely nothing. Because in that silence, you finally see who you really are. Not the version others describe, but the man you live with every day. And that's the man the Stoic builds, shapes, strengthens. So when the world starts speaking to him again, he doesn't need it anymore, because he's already made peace with his inner voice. Now let's go one step further. Let's talk about how you rebuild yourself in solitude. Silence doesn't just show you who you are, it reminds you who you're meant to be. And that's the question the Stoic man keeps asking. Who do I want to become? And who am I right now? Most people, when they're alone, look for something to escape into. But the Stoic man, he looks for something to face. Because solitude is time to build. A personality shaped in crowds is often just performance. True structure starts in silence. That's why the Stoic man doesn't shut down when he's alone. He rebuilds. He lines up the voices in his head. He reevaluates his habits. He cuts what's unnecessary and returns to what matters. How does he spend his day? Where is his time going? How does he treat his body? What is he feeding his mind? Do his words match his actions? You don't reach your ideal self by acting at random. You need discipline, you need consistency, and most of all, you need a personal vision. Something only you can see. The Stoic man places that vision in front of him every single day. When he wakes up, he doesn't just aim to get through the day. He aims to become a better man. Marcus Aurelius once said, "When you rise in the morning, let your first thought be of duty. You weren't born for comfort. You were born for virtue." That's why solitude is not a trap for him. It's a workshop. It's where he shapes his soul, sharpens his mind, strengthens his body, clears his thoughts, and pushes his character one step further, day after day. The ideal self isn't about being perfect. It's about being just a bit more honest, a bit more brave, a bit more disciplined than you were yesterday. And to do that, you sometimes have to step away from the crowd. Because with too many voices around, you can't hear your own direction. The Stoic man shapes his purpose in the quiet. Then he chases it relentlessly. And thanks to that solid foundation he builds in solitude, he can stand like a mountain, even in the middle of a noisy world. Now it's time to face the one thing that weakens that foundation: the addiction to external approval. Before we can understand true inner strength, we need to recognize the traps of validation that come from outside. You want to be accepted? I get it. You want to be liked, appreciated. You want someone to look at you and say, "You're a good man." You want your efforts to be seen, your struggle to be noticed, your existence to matter in someone's eyes. And that's exactly why when you're alone, you start to feel worthless, because those outside voices, the ones that validate you, go silent. And suddenly you're face to face with the emptiness inside. But stop. This is important. The Stoic man knows this truth. A man who depends on external approval is never free. Today, most men shape their lives through someone else's eyes. What they wear, what they say, what they believe. It all gets filtered through the need to be accepted. They act just to be liked. They stay silent just to avoid judgment. They hide their identity to escape criticism. But the more you mold yourself for the world out there, the more you lose the man within. Epictetus once said, "Don't be someone else's slave, be the master of your own mind." So how do you do that? For the Stoic man, the only measure that truly matters good is conscience. Even if no one understands you, and if you know who you are, you're at peace. Even if society judges you, if you're rooted in your values, you stay grounded. Because a man with a strong inner compass doesn't get blown around by outside wind. That's why solitude is a test to see who you are when no one's watching. Are you still the same man when there's no praise, no applause, no one telling you good job? Do you still do the right thing when no one's looking? Do you carry your responsibilities when no one's there to cheer you on? If the answer is yes, then you're no longer living off borrowed strength. You've started producing your own value from within. And that is where real power begins, because the praise of the world fades quickly. But your character is what you face every morning in the mirror. And that man, you build him in solitude and you test him in silence. To have the quiet approval of your own conscience, not the noisy applause of the crowd. That's what makes a Stoic man. That's why he needs solitude. Because when the outer noise fades, the truth inside becomes clear. Now let's take one step further, away from the noise of validation and towards something real. Let's talk about how to build genuine connections and how to avoid the trap of fake ones. Most men who try to escape loneliness end up clinging to the wrong people. Friendships full of laughs but no depth. Relationships built just to fill a void. Endless chats with people you're not really connected to. These don't erase loneliness, they just delay it. And when it comes back, it hits even harder. I'm still lonely, even in a crowd. The antidote to that feeling lies in the Stoic mindset. A Stoic man doesn't need to be social, but he must be intentional with his connections. Seneca said, "A true friend is someone who holds up a mirror to your soul. Not someone who flatters you, but someone who helps you grow. Someone who can call you out. Someone who pushes you toward virtue. That's a real connection." The Stoic man doesn't care about having lots of friends because he knows quality beats quantity. He doesn't form friendships just to appear well-liked. He doesn't cling to people just to avoid feeling alone. He doesn't waste his energy on fake smiles, shallow conversations, or relationships that feel more like a performance. Instead, he's selective. Can I exchange real ideas with this person? Do we share values? Is this friendship built on truth or just on convenience and mutual gain? If the answer is no, the Stoic man chooses solitude, because a fake connection is heavier than true loneliness. And remember this, shallow relationships drain you, real ones feed you. The friendships you build while alone are often the most meaningful, because they're not built out of need, but out of choice. That's why the Stoic man asks himself one question before forming a bond. What does this person add to my character? If you want real connection, you first need to be honest with yourself. Do you truly want to connect, or are you just trying to fill a hole? The Stoic man can see the difference. That's why he doesn't fear loneliness, he lives it consciously. And that awareness saves him from feeling alone in a crowd. Now let's turn inward again. Let's talk about what it really means to become friends with yourself. A man who fears being alone is really just afraid of himself, because loneliness only puts you face to face with one person, you. And if you can't get along with your own inner voice, solitude starts to feel like a prison. It suffocates you. You want to escape, to the noise, to the crowds, to another relationship, anywhere but alone with yourself. But the Stoic man refuses that escape, because he knows if you can't be friends with yourself, you'll never form a real connection with anyone else. So what does it mean to be your own friend? Is it about self-love, endless self-praise? Being your own friend begins with one thing: honesty. It means not lying to yourself, not wearing a mask, even when you're standing in front of the mirror. The Stoic man doesn't deny his flaws, but he doesn't run from them either. He's not cruel to himself, he's fair. He doesn't fight himself, he trains himself. Every day he asks, are my thoughts, my words, and my actions in harmony today? And if the answer is no, he digs into why. Because that kind of inner conflict kills peace of mind. And a man at war with himself will always want to escape his own company. The Stoic man sees himself as a project, unfinished, but full of potential. Solitude is his chance to reconnect with his inner voice. Without judgment, without running, without pretending, he keeps a journal. Not to show the world, but to face his own truth. He carries a moral compass, not in his pocket, but in his mind. And most importantly, he practices patience with the process of understanding himself. Because if you want someone else to understand you, you first need to understand yourself. If you want real bonds with a woman, a friend, or a community, you first need a real bond within. Being your own friend is making peace with loneliness. Because once you do that, you no longer feel uneasy when you're alone. In fact, you go deeper. When you truly know yourself, being alone stops feeling like punishment. It becomes a retreat, a rebuilding process. That's why the Stoic man doesn't fear solitude. Because when he's alone, he's not stuck with a stranger. He's standing with someone he trusts. Now let's take one more step from that trust. Let's talk about how to find meaning and purpose, even in the silence of solitude. Loneliness isn't just a feeling, it's a question. Why am I here? And that question makes most men uncomfortable. Because loneliness without purpose feels heavy. The emptiness grows, time slows down, and you start to feel like a stranger to yourself. But the Stoic man sees that emptiness differently. He doesn't see loneliness as wasted time. He sees it as a calling, not a call to chase distractions, but a call to return to yourself. A life without purpose creates a scattered mind, and a scattered mind falls apart in silence. That's why the Stoic man asks himself just one thing when he's alone. What did I serve today? Did I serve my ego, my comfort, or my virtue? Because meaning doesn't come from the outside, not from a woman, not from a group of friends, not from status. Real meaning comes from the values you serve. Seneca said, "A life of virtue is its own reward." It's not just about existing, it's about living right, being consistent, being useful. And when you're alone, that's when those values are tested. Can you do the right thing even when no one's watching? Are your days shaped around purpose, or are you just letting time shape you? For the Stoic man, solitude is where he simplifies his goals. There's no noise, no competition, no comparison, just you. and the silence that asks, is there purpose behind how you're living or not? In that silence, you start asking bigger questions. What does this life mean to me? The answer won't always be clear, but just having the courage to ask already separates you from the crowd. Because most people either live by someone else's purpose or drift through life with none at all. But you, as a Stoic man, you don't lose your direction even when you're alone, because your compass is internal. And even when the outside world shifts, you remain centered. A man who finds meaning in solitude never loses himself in the noise of the crowd. Now let's talk about how to carry that meaning into daily life. Next step, the discipline of silence, the modern world. In today's world, silence is often seen as a weakness. If you don't have your phone in hand, you feel restless. TV, music, messages, notifications, a constant bombardment of noise. And that noise doesn't just come from outside. There's a whole world talking inside your mind too. For the Stoic man, the greatest test of our time is this: to be able to stay silent. But this silence isn't just about muting sound. It's about not reacting, resisting the noise, learning to hold your mind steady in the emptiness. Because silence requires discipline. And in the modern world, that discipline isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Checking your phone the moment you wake up, filling every free moment with distractions, running to social media the second you're alone. These are all escapes, the restless mind's way of avoiding silence. But the Stoic man catches these escapes one by one and gently lets them go. An hour of silence in the morning, a few minutes of solo walking during the day, dinner without any screens. They might seem like small things, but those little moments of silence grow into a vast clarity of mind. Because true awareness begins in silence. In that silence, you hear what you really think, what you really feel. You can't lie to yourself. Epictetus said, "Before you speak, think, but before you think, be silent." That's why silence isn't a retreat for the Stoic man. It's a tool to realign himself, to understand his emotions, to strengthen his mind. While the modern world pulls your attention in every direction, you learn to focus on one thing: yourself. Silence doesn't weaken you, it makes you stronger. Because when the outside noise fades, your inner voice becomes clearer. And with that clarity, your decisions become firmer, your words fewer but more powerful, your presence simpler but stronger. For the Stoic man, silence isn't weakness. It's strength, a sign of mastery over himself. Now let's see where this discipline can take us, how solitude can make us stronger, how to not just be friends with loneliness, but to make it your ally. We'll talk about this in the final chapter. Loneliness doesn't weaken you, it strengthens you. But that strength comes quietly, not with noise. A man in a crowd looks strong with all the noise around him. But the man who stands like a mountain when he's alone, that man is truly strong. The Stoic man doesn't fall when he's alone. He stands tall, because his foundation isn't outside, it's within. When he's alone, he doesn't fall into emptiness. He roots himself in his values, in his decisions, in his character. It's not easy. Being alone means facing yourself. Old memories, buried feelings, weaknesses you wish to forget. But it's these very confrontations that mature a man. Loneliness strips away your masks. It lets you see the child, the warrior, the coward, the leader inside you. And the Stoic man doesn't suppress these faces. He knows them, he accepts them, he transforms them. Now he needs no crowd. He holds on to patience, not applause, consistency, not praise, being, not showing. A man who reaches this point is alone but not lonely. Because he's made peace with himself, he has purpose, he controls the silence, he chooses his connections, he's not dependent on outside approval, and his inner compass always guides him true. For the Stoic man, loneliness isn't a process, it's a place to build, to shape, to be reborn. And a man who comes out of this place is different. He speaks less but understands more. He searches less but builds stronger bonds. He's less visible but leaves deeper marks. If you're on this path, remember this. Loneliness isn't a void. It's an opportunity to know yourself, to transform, and to grow stronger. And not everyone gets this chance. But the Stoic man, he recognizes it, and he uses it fully.